If you're watching this video, there's a good chance you've been learning English for months, maybe even years. And yet, when you open your mouth to speak, something still holds you back. Here's the truth. Most people never tell you. It's not your grammar. It's not your vocabulary. It's not even your accent. The biggest mistake isn't your grammar. It's the silence you choose when you're afraid of making a mistake. Today, you're going to discover a different way of practicing English. Not the boring, robotic kind where you memorize rules and forget them the next day. I'm talking about a way of speaking that builds real confidence, the kind that comes from your voice, your rhythm, your courage to try. This lesson can change the way you speak English, not because it's magic, but because it's honest. Every fluent speaker you admire once stood exactly where you're standing now. Unsure, hesitant, afraid of sounding wrong. The difference between them and where you are today isn't talent. It's the decision to keep speaking anyway. Most English learners never realize this. Fluency isn't about knowing more words. It's about trusting the words you already have. You don't need a bigger vocabulary today. You need braver lips, a calmer mind, and 15 focused minutes. By the end of this video, you'll have 5 simple but powerful shifts that will help you speak with more clarity, more confidence, and more heart. This isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming free. Free to speak, free to stumble, free to grow. So take a breath. Sit up a little straighter. Today is the day you stop waiting to feel ready, because readiness comes from doing, not from waiting. Let's begin with the very first shift that changes everything, the silent mistake holding your fluency back. Let's talk about something nobody tells you when you start learning English, the real reason you're not speaking as fluently as you want to, even after all your hard work. It's not your grammar, it's not your vocabulary, it's not even your accent. The real mistake, the one holding you back more than anything else, is silence. Think about it. How many times have you known the answer, known the sentence, known exactly what you wanted to say, and said nothing? How many times did you rehearse the sentence in your head, perfect it, polish it, and then let the moment pass because you were afraid it might come out wrong? This is the silent mistake, and it's silent in 2 ways. First, because it happens quietly inside your mind, where no one else can see it. And second, because its effect is exactly that, silence. No words, no practice, no growth. Here's what makes this mistake so dangerous. It doesn't feel like a mistake at all. It feels like caution. It feels like being careful. It feels responsible, even smart. I'll wait until I'm more confident. I'll speak once my grammar is better. I don't want to embarrass myself. But every time you choose silence over speaking, you're not protecting yourself. You're postponing your own progress. Fluency is not something that arrives after you've become perfect. Fluency is what happens because you spoke while you were still imperfect. Every fluent speaker you've ever admired, every confident voice you've listened to, went through hundreds, maybe thousands of imperfect sentences before their English started to flow. They didn't wait for confidence to speak. They built confidence by speaking. So why does this matter so much for you today in this lesson? Because shadowing practice, the method we use in this channel, is built entirely on breaking this. Silence. When you shadow a native speaker, you're not analyzing grammar rules in your head. You're not translating word by word. You're doing something far more powerful. You're opening your mouth, matching the rhythm, copying the melody of real spoken English, and letting your voice move even before your mind fully understands every rule behind it. This is exactly how children learn their first language. They don't study grammar tables before they speak. They listen, they imitate, they make mistakes. And they keep going. And somewhere along that messy, imperfect road, fluency quietly appears. You have that same ability inside you right now. It hasn't disappeared. It's just been paused by fear. Here's a truth that might surprise you. Your brain doesn't need you to be right every time you speak. It needs repetition. It needs your mouth to physically practice the sounds, the stress patterns, the natural connections between words, the way want to becomes wanna, the way sentences rise and fall with emotion. This happens only through speaking out loud, not through silent reading, not through memorizing lists, and definitely not through waiting. So today, I want you to notice this pattern in your own life. The next time you're about to stay silent because you're unsure, pause and ask yourself, am I protecting myself or am I postponing my growth? Because every silent moment is a missed rep. And just like building muscle at the gym, fluency is built through repetition, not perfection. This is why the 15 minutes you spend shadowing today matter more than you think. You're not just repeating sentences. You're breaking a habit of silence that may have followed you for years. You're teaching your voice that it's allowed to try, allowed to stumble, allowed to sound imperfect on the way to sounding fluent. And here's something beautiful about this process. The moment you start speaking, even with mistakes, something shifts inside you. Your confidence doesn't wait for perfect English. It grows the instant you choose your voice over your fear. That shift is small at first, but repeated daily, it becomes unstoppable. So from this point forward, I want you to make a quiet promise to yourself. No more silent mistakes. No more perfect sentences trapped inside your head. From today, you speak out loud, imperfectly, bravely, because that is the only path that leads to fluency. Remember, the world doesn't reward the person with the most correct grammar. It rewards the person who keeps speaking, keeps trying, keeps showing up. Your voice deserves to be heard, even while it's still growing, and every single day you choose to speak instead of staying silent, you move one step closer to the fluent, confident English speaker you're becoming. So as we move into today's shadowing practice, carry this with you. Silence was never protecting you. Speaking is. Let today be the day you choose your voice. Speak before you feel ready and watch yourself grow. There's a moment every English learner knows too well. That pause right before you speak, when your mind whispers, wait, not yet, you're not ready. Maybe you felt it in a classroom, in a meeting, in a conversation with a native speaker, or even talking to yourself in the mirror. That tiny hesitation feels harmless, even wise. But here's the truth that can change everything for you today. Readiness is a myth. Nobody ever feels fully ready to speak a new language. Not beginners, not intermediate learners, not even advanced speakers. Readiness isn't something you wait for. It's something you create, one spoken sentence at a time. Think about the moments in your life when you truly grew. Was it while you were comfortable, prepared, and certain? Or was it in the moments when you took a step forward despite the fear, despite the doubt, despite not having everything figured out? Growth has always lived on the other side of I'm not ready. And speaking English is no different. Here's what most learners get backwards. They believe confidence comes first, and speaking comes second. Once I feel confident, I'll speak more. But confidence doesn't work that way. Confidence is not the cause of speaking, it's the result of speaking. Every single time you open your mouth and try, even if the sentence comes out shaky or incomplete, you are literally building the confidence you've been waiting for. You cannot think your way into confidence. You can only speak your way into it. This is why waiting to feel ready can quietly become one of the biggest obstacles in your English journey. The learner who waits stays stuck in preparation mode, always studying, always reviewing, always planning to speak soon. Meanwhile, the learner who speaks before they feel ready, imperfectly, nervously, bravely moves forward every single day. Over months, that gap becomes enormous. Not because one person is smarter or more talented, but because one person chose action over hesitation. Let's bring this into your shadowing practice, because this is exactly where the magic happens. When you shadow a sentence, you don't need to understand every grammar rule behind it. You don't need perfect pronunciation on your first try. You don't need to feel ready to repeat the words you just heard. You simply speak, matching the rhythm, the stress, the emotion of the speaker, and let your mouth learn through doing, not through overthinking. This is such an important shift in mindset. Many learners treat speaking like a final exam, something you do only once you've mastered the material. But speaking isn't the test. Speaking is the practice. Every attempt, every imperfect repetition, every shaky sentence is a rep that strengthens your fluency muscle. You wouldn't expect to walk into a gym and lift the heaviest weight on day one. You'd start where you are, and you'd get stronger through consistent, imperfect effort. English works exactly the same way. So here's a question I want you to sit with. What have you been waiting to feel ready for? Is it ordering food in English without hesitation, speaking up in a meeting, having a real conversation with a native speaker, recording yourself talking on camera? Whatever it is, I want you to notice that the feeling of readiness you're waiting for will not arrive by waiting, it will arrive by doing. There's a quiet kind of courage in speaking before you're ready. It says, I trust myself to figure it out as I go. It says, I would rather try and stumble than stay silent and stay stuck. And this courage compounds. The more you practice speaking before you're ready, the smaller that fear becomes until one day you realize you're not waiting anymore. You're simply speaking naturally, freely, without that heavy hesitation you used to carry. This is the heart of shadowing practice. It gives you a safe space to speak before you're ready. No audience judging you, no pressure to be perfect. Just you, your voice, and the model sentence guiding you forward. Every single day you show up for these 15 minutes, you are proving to yourself that you don't need permission to grow. You don't need to wait for some future version of yourself who finally feels confident. That version of you is built right here, right now, one imperfect sentence at a time. So today, as you move through your shadowing practice, I want you to release the pressure of getting it right. Let go of the idea that you need to feel ready before you speak. Instead, speak and let the readiness catch up to you. Because the truth is simple. You don't think your way into speaking. You speak your way into confidence. And every time you choose action over hesitation, you are already becoming the fluent English speaker you're working so hard to be. If there's one method that quietly separates fluent English speakers from those who stay stuck at textbook English for years, it's this: shadowing. And yet, most learners have never even heard of it. Or if they have, they've never practiced it the right way. Today, I want to show you why this simple, humble technique is one of the most powerful tools you'll ever use on your journey to fluency. Let's start with what shadowing actually is, in the simplest way possible. Shadowing means listening to a native speaker and repeating what they say almost at the same time. Like a shadow following a person's movement, just a half second behind. You're not translating. You're not pausing to think about grammar rules. You're not stopping to look up unfamiliar words. You're simply matching. Matching the sound, the rhythm, the rise and fall of their voice, the way their words connect and blend together naturally. Why does this work so well? Because English fluency isn't just about knowing words. It's about training your mouth, your ears, and your brain to move together in real time. The same way a musician trains their fingers to move without consciously thinking about each note. When you shadow, you're not memorizing information. You're building muscle memory, the physical, natural ability to produce English sounds smoothly without that heavy mental translation process slowing you down. Think about how differently native speakers sound compared to a textbook recording. In real English, words blend together. What are you doing becomes what you're doing. Going to becomes gonna. Sentences rise and fall with emotion. Stress lands on certain words to show meaning, and pauses come in places you wouldn't expect from reading grammar rules alone. No textbook can fully teach you this, but shadowing can, because you're not studying the rhythm of English, you're living it, one repetition at a time. Here's the part that most learners miss. Shadowing isn't about understanding everything perfectly. In fact, trying to analyze every word while you shadow will slow you down and break the rhythm you're trying to build. The secret is to let go of the need to fully understand in the moment and instead trust the process. Repeat what you hear, focus on sound and rhythm, and allow comprehension to develop naturally over time, the same way it did when you were a child listening to your first language. This is exactly why fluent speakers swear by this method. It doesn't just teach you English, it retrains your ear to hear English the way native speakers do, and it retrains your mouth to produce English without hesitation. Over time, shadowing builds something textbooks simply cannot: natural rhythm, natural intonation, and natural confidence. Let's talk about how this applies to your 15 minutes of practice today. When you shadow a sentence, don't worry about getting every word exactly right on your first attempt. Focus instead on the feeling of the sentence, the emotion, the speed, the music of it. Repeat it 2 or 3 times if needed. Exaggerate the stress and intonation, even if it feels a little uncomfortable at first. This discomfort is actually a sign that you're stretching beyond your old habits, and that stretching is exactly where growth happens. Many learners ask, how long before I notice a difference? Here's the honest answer. Shadowing works cumulatively. You may not feel a dramatic shift after one session, but if you commit to this practice daily, even just 15 focused minutes, you will start to notice something remarkable happening within a few weeks. Words that once felt awkward in your mouth will start to flow more naturally. Sentences you used to construct slowly, word by word, will begin to come out smoothly, almost automatically. Your listening comprehension will sharpen too, because your ear will become trained to recognize natural speech patterns instead of slow, textbook-style pronunciation. This is the quiet secret behind so many fluent speakers' success. They didn't necessarily study more grammar rules than you. They didn't necessarily memorize more vocabulary lists. What they did was practice speaking like native speakers sound over and over until it became second nature. Shadowing compresses years of passive exposure into months of active, focused practice. So today, as you begin your shadowing session, remind yourself, you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to understand every single word instantly. You simply need to show up, open your mouth, and follow the rhythm again and again. Trust that your brain is doing powerful work behind the scenes, even when progress feels invisible day to day. This is more than a technique. It's a mindset shift from studying English to living English. Even if just for 15 minutes a day, and every time you practice this shadowing secret, you're not just repeating sentences, you're rewiring the way your mouth, your ears, and your confidence work together, building quietly and steadily. The fluent voice you've been waiting to hear from yourself. Somewhere along your English learning journey, a quiet fear probably crept in, the fear of making a mistake. Maybe it started in a classroom, when you were corrected in front of others. Maybe it started when someone laughed at a mispronounced word. Maybe no single moment caused it at all. It simply grew, slowly, every time you hesitated to speak because you were afraid of getting it wrong. And here's what I want you to understand today. That fear was never protecting you. It was quietly stealing your progress. Let's be honest about something most language courses never tell you directly. Mistakes are not the enemy of fluency. They are the path to fluency. Every fluent speaker you admire, every confident voice on this channel, every native speaker you've ever envied, made thousands of mistakes before their English became smooth. The difference between them and someone who stays stuck isn't that they made fewer mistakes. It's that they didn't let mistakes stop them from continuing. Think about how a child learns to walk. They don't stand up perfectly on the first try. They fall. They wobble. They try again. Nobody watches a toddler fall and thinks they're just not meant to walk. We understand instinctively that falling is part of the process. But somewhere between childhood and adulthood, we lose that instinct when it comes to learning something new, especially language. We start believing mistakes mean failure, instead of understanding that mistakes mean practice. Here's a shift in perspective that can change your entire relationship with English. Every mistake you make while speaking is not proof that you're bad at English. It's proof that you're actively engaged in the process of getting better. Silence produces no mistakes, but it also produces no growth. Speaking produces mistakes, but it also produces progress. Which one would you rather have? This is especially important in your shadowing practice. When you repeat a sentence and your pronunciation isn't perfect, when you stumble over a word, when your rhythm doesn't quite match the speaker yet, this is not a sign to stop or feel discouraged. This is your brain actively building new neural pathways for English sounds and rhythms. Each imperfect repetition is training data for your mouth and your mind. The mistake itself is doing work you cannot do any other way. I want you to try something today. The next time you make a mistake while practicing, whether it's mispronouncing a word, forgetting a phrase, or stumbling over a sentence, instead of feeling embarrassed or frustrated, try saying quietly to yourself, "Good. That's one more mistake I won't make the same way again." This isn't just positive thinking for the sake of it, it's actually how learning works. Your brain remembers corrected mistakes far more effectively than information it got right without effort. Struggle strengthens memory, discomfort creates growth. There's also a deeper truth hiding inside this fear of mistakes. Often, we're not really afraid of the mistake itself. We're afraid of what we imagine other people will think of us. But consider this. Most people are far too focused on their own thoughts, their own words, their own lives to be silently judging your grammar mistakes. And the people who do judge you for trying to speak a new language, their opinion says far more about them than it does about you. Meanwhile, every person who has ever respected someone learning a new language respects the courage it takes to try, imperfect accent and all. So today, I want you to reframe what a mistake means to you. A mistake is not evidence that you're failing at English. A mistake is evidence that you showed up, that you tried, that you're actively building the skill instead of just dreaming about it. Fluent speakers aren't fluent because they avoided mistakes. They're fluent because they made peace with making them over and over until their mouths and minds adjusted naturally. As you shadow today's sentences, give yourself full permission to sound awkward, to mispronounce, to mismatch rhythm here and there. Don't chase perfection, chase repetition. Don't fear the mistake, welcome it as proof of effort. Because somewhere in these 15 minutes of imperfect practice, real transformation is quietly happening, even if you can't feel it yet. Remember this, every fluent English speaker in the world has a long, messy trail of mistakes behind them. Mispronounced words, awkward sentences, forgotten grammar rules. What made them fluent wasn't avoiding that trail. It was walking through it anyway, one brave, imperfect sentence at a time. Let today be the day you stop fearing your mistakes and start thanking them for the progress they're quietly giving you. There's a beautiful truth about language learning that most people overlook. English isn't just something you understand, it's something you do with your body. Your mouth, your tongue, your lips, your breath. These are physical tools, and just like any physical skill, they need training, not just information. Today, I want you to see English speaking the same way an athlete sees their sport. Something that requires both mental strength and physical repetition working together. Think about how we usually approach language learning. We read grammar books, we memorize vocabulary lists, we watch videos and nod along, understanding everything perfectly in our heads. And yet, when it's time to actually speak, the words don't come out smoothly. Why? Because understanding English in your mind and producing English with your mouth are two completely different skills. You can know 1,000 words and still struggle to say a single sentence fluently. Not because your brain doesn't know English, but because your mouth hasn't been trained to move the way English requires. This is one of the most overlooked truths in language learning. Fluency is partly physical. Every language has its own unique mouth movements, its own muscle patterns. English requires certain tongue positions, certain lip shapes, certain breath patterns that might feel completely unfamiliar if your native language works differently. This is why simply knowing English isn't enough. Your mouth needs practice, repetition, and training, just like your mind needs the confidence to try. This is where the analogy to mindset training becomes so powerful. Think about how an athlete builds strength. They don't read about lifting weights and expect their muscles to grow. They show up again and again and physically practice the movement even when it's uncomfortable, even when progress feels slow, even when their body resists at first. Over time, through consistent repetition, what once felt awkward becomes smooth, natural, automatic. Your mouth learns English the exact same way. Every time you shadow a sentence out loud, you are physically training your speech muscles, the same way a runner trains their legs or a singer trains their voice. This is why passive learning alone, just watching, just reading, just listening, will only take you so far. You must physically produce the sounds again and again until your mouth remembers them without your mind having to think so hard. But here's where the mindset piece becomes just as important as the physical piece. Just like your muscles need consistent training, your confidence needs consistent training too. Confidence isn't a fixed trait some people have and others don't. It's a skill built through repetition, just like fluency itself. Every time you push through discomfort and speak anyway, you're not just training your mouth, you're also training your mind to believe, I can do this. I am capable of speaking English well. This is why your daily 15-minute shadowing practice is about so much more than pronunciation. It's a daily training session for both your speech muscles and your mental confidence. Each day you show up, even when you don't feel motivated, even when progress feels invisible, you are building something powerful, a mind that no longer fears speaking, and a mouth that no longer struggles to keep up with your thoughts. I want you to think about consistency here, because this is where real transformation happens. Nobody becomes fluent from one intense session of practice. Fluency comes from small, repeated efforts done consistently over time. Just like you wouldn't expect to build strength from a single trip to the gym, you shouldn't expect fluency from a single day of practice, but show up daily, 15 minutes, consistently, with patience and self-compassion, and over weeks and months, you will look back and realize how far you've come. Here's something important to remember on days when it feels hard. Discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. Discomfort is a sign that you're training, that your mouth and mind are stretching beyond their old limits. Just like sore muscles after a workout mean your body is getting stronger, an awkward, effortful shadowing session means your English skills are quietly growing, even if you can't feel it in the moment. So today, as you close out this lesson, I want you to carry this mindset forward. Treat your mouth like an athlete treats their body, with patience, consistency, and trust in the process, and treat your confidence the same way. Not as something you either have or don't have, but as something you build, one brave spoken sentence at a time. You don't need to feel fluent today. You simply need to show up today, and tomorrow, show up again. Because fluency isn't a moment you arrive at, it's a practice you build day after day, until one day, without even realizing exactly when it happened, you find yourself speaking English with the ease, confidence, and freedom you've been working so hard to reach.